Welcome to the great work of your life. This is a Revealing Genius interview series, and I am so delighted to be here today to welcome Ms. Michele Young. I'll tell you a little bit about her. She has taught special education for 30 years in Hillsborough County, Florida. And she's just recently made a very interesting pivot, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's a fascinating story, but a little bit about Michele before we dive into that. She's a Florida State University grad. For all you FSU alums out there, Burt Reynolds, Sarah Blakely, Deion Sanders, all graduates from FSU. Her degree was in visual impairment, and she's taught blind and visually impaired multi-handicapped children for 19 years. For 4 years, she served in an administrative role as an exceptional student education specialist. And for the remainder of her career, she has taught adults with intellectual disabilities. She's won many awards for her very important work. She was recognized as Teacher of the Year 3 times. She received the Ida S. Baker Diversity Education of the Year. She's also an adjunct instructor for FSU, and she taught a course in how to teach students with multiple disabilities. And here's the story for today. In 2016, she began drawing with colored pencils in her spare time. So fast forward to now, she currently shows her work in various venues throughout the Tampa Bay area. And when she retires from teaching, she's going to devote her time to art and pursuing a visual learning project for teaching adults with disabilities. I'm a huge fan, so I will shamelessly share your website. It is michelleyoungart.com, Michelle with one L,
Yes.
www.michelleyoungart.com, Michelle with one L. So welcome, Michele. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Mary. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And when we met, I was fascinated by your story in terms of the great work of your life is really a combination of your passions. And can you tell us just a little, tell me this, our listeners the story that you told us when we were together at our group gathering just recently, in terms of how you came to this place.
Okay, well, I've always enjoyed art ever since I was in ever since as far back as I can remember. I had several artistic family members, and so I was fairly good at art in high school. And when I went to college, I wanted to major in art education. I knew I always wanted to be a teacher, and I knew that I enjoyed art as well. And so when I went to FSU, I started off as an art education major. And the first class that I took, my art teacher asked us to draw our hand. And so, of course, I drew my hand just like how it looks, And he said, for all of you in the class who drew your hand just like how it looks, your style is too realistic and you'll never make it as an artist. So I said, okay, well, I need to make it. So I changed my major to visual impairments, which is a very sort of rare degree for a university to offer. Florida State University is one of the few colleges that offers that degree. And it is a program that teaches you how to teach blind and visually impaired people. And so you can either go into education or you can go into more of a rehab path. And I chose the education path. And so I was a vision teacher for almost 20 years until it became too physically demanding because my students were visually impaired and multi-handicapped. So I had to do a lot of lifting and changing out of wheelchairs and things. And so that's when I sort of switched for a few years to a sort of administrative role, and then to what I'm doing now, which is teaching adults with disabilities. But when I was in the administrative role, that's when things got really stressful. And I knew I needed to do something to balance things out. And, I had always loved art and always loved colored pencils, but for the 20 years I was teaching visually impaired, didn't have time. So I like you said, in the introduction, I got out my colored pencils and away I went. So, and it has
I'm
just
so glad. So glad you did. I ordered your note cards, the beautiful, realistic representation of the beautiful pieces of fruit, especially the lime. My company colors are evergreen and ebony, and I love anything green. So the lime I was really attracted to. They're just gorgeous.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
gorgeous.
Thank
Really
you.
well done. Yes.
Thank
So MichelleYoungArt.com, one
you.
L,
Yes.
Michelle with one L,
Yes.
if you're interested. So shall we dive into the questions, Michelle?
Yes. Yes. Let's.
So first, first two questions are a combination. What gives you energy and what drains your energy?
Mm. Well, when I first read this question, I thought a good night's sleep all the way through without waking up in the middle of the night gives me energy. But I don't think that's the answer you were looking for. Um, what gives me energy is, and I have thought a lot about this, and I think really what it boils down to for me is routine and structure. Routine and structure and organizing things so that the environment runs efficiently and it's clutter free and organized, and figuring out how to make things work better and fit better in the space and just calm, quiet. I think those are the things that give me the most energy, because I kind of realized over the holidays, when you're not following your normal routine and your normal structure and how everything, it's good to see family and be on vacation and all of those things. But when I got back to my structure and my routine, I realized that it was giving me more energy, and that the other, to answer your second question, the opposite is true for me. It's just the chaos and the noise, and when things are just not in order, and not your usual routine, and also when there's a lot of people, but not necessarily when there's a lot of people, more so when people don't listen, when people are kind of self-absorbed, and that's kind of draining to me. So,
Well said. I'm sure there are countless people listening right now that can relate to exactly what you just said. So thank you. That's it was well articulated in terms of the yin and the yang.
thank you. Yeah.
And the next two questions are similar, a similar yin and yang question. And it is, what do you love the most about your work? And what do you like the least about your work?
Well, in terms of teaching, I'll go back to college again. And one of my first one of my first professors in visual impairments, you have to learn how to teach, educate the blind people, and you have to know how to teach them how to travel. So I did both, and I learned how to be an orientation and mobility instructor, which is how to teach a blind person how to use a cane, how to travel from point A to point B. So orientation and mobility is, the acronym for that is O and M. O for orientation, M for mobility. So my O and M instructor, he was very wise, and he was at FSU for a long time. And the one thing that he taught us is that we always have to remember to give our students a number and a variety of experiences. And what he meant by that is blind people don't learn incidentally. Like, for example, you could just watch your mom make a bed, and you could pretty much figure out how to make the bed just by watching her. And that's called incidental learning. And so people with sight learn things all the time just incidentally. They don't have to necessarily be taught step by step. the people without sight, you have to give them those experiences. You have to show them, for a multi-handicapped blind person, you have to show them what a skirt looks like on a lady, because they don't know what it looks like.
Mhm.
And so you can't really do that. You can't have them, there's proper ways to do that. And so you have to give them those experiences and take them to the store and show them the racks of clothing, and take them to the grocery store and let them feel the eggs and all of those things. So to answer your question, my greatest joy throughout my whole career, whether it was blind people or my adults with disabilities, is to give them those opportunities out in the community and in the classroom. I remember I had one student who was a what do you call it? Not a candidate. He went to Shriners. He was a Shriners patient because he had to have his arms and his legs amputated because he had an infection in his body. Plus, he lost his sight completely as a very, very young child, I don't know, 10 months old or whatever. So one of the things we used to do back in the day was we used to take our students swimming. And again, I just always think back, give them a number and variety of experiences. And this little boy was so free in the water because he could move around all by himself, and so it was just so enjoyable to see him just light up and just get so excited when he was in the water because he could move all around by himself. So all of those experiences of giving them experiences is what has brought me joy in my work.
Beautiful story. And this is really for my own edification. So were the majority of your students visually impaired? Was that a congenital impairment, or did you work with folks who had some type of a terrible accident or a disease that caused them to go blind?
Most of them were congenital. Unfortunately, some of them, drowning, accidents, some disease, yeah, but most of it was congenital.
Understood. Okay, so they've never had the experience of seeing.
Never.
Yes, and you had to. It makes perfect sense now. I can see, why that would light you up. When someone experiences
something for the first time.
They have an aha moment. Yes.
Just
brilliant.
The little thing like feeling it or cracking it, like we would do a lot of cooking, and just the first time they ever cracked the egg, and it was all of those things even now my adults with disabilities, they're in their 50s and 60s, and just taking them to the river walk and enjoying some chips and salsa at at Armature Works, they just love it. And just watching the river and, even simple things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Well done. Next question is, do you ever have doubts? I call them freak out moments. Did you ever have doubts about the great work of your life? And can you give us an example?
Well, I don't know if I would say doubts, but I would say definitely freak out moments. I mean, I never doubted that it was a good teaching was a good profession. But once you're in it, there's plenty of freak out moments, and especially in special ed. And I could probably sit here for the rest of the night and tell you all the freak out moments. And just to name a few, again, my students were multi-handicapped, and so a lot of them were very medically fragile. So I remember one thing that pops into my head is the first time one of their feeding tubes popped out of their stomach. Oh my gosh, talking about freaking out. And we had walkie-talkies that we could call the nurse. I wasn't even thinking straight to use the walkie-talkie. I just ran out of the classroom as fast as I could to go get the nurse help, So that was a freak out moment. I remember one time when I taught the visually impaired, I wasn't always at a school site. Sometimes I had to go into people's homes. And I remember going into this home of a family whose the parents were also blind. So it was two blind parents with two blind children. And the two blind parents couldn't see at all either. And when I went into their house, their countertop was filled with roaches.
Oh,
I freaked out then. Just I freaked out when my first student passed away. I freaked out when I was in administration and one of the kids, tried to commit suicide at school. So those kind of more medical issues with what my experience has been, and sometimes more like freaking out over the stress of the paperwork and all of that. But mostly it was the medical aspects of things, because I wasn't trained as a nurse. I just taught people how to use a cane and how to read braille.
right.
They didn't tell
Yeah.
you all that other stuff when when you're learning.
And that was a question I had too. So you're not trained as a nurse, and one of my questions was, your students were medically fragile in many ways. Did they also have cognitive disabilities visual
Oh, yeah.
impairment, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities? So it ran the full spectrum. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Cognitive disabilities in such a way that they it, no no ability to communicate at all. Can't read, can't write, can't speak, can't go to the bathroom. We're talking very, very in education lingo, you would say severe, profound, mentally handicapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
not so much now. My students now know they're a little higher functioning, well, quite a bit higher functioning than that, but
Mhm. Yes, it's a calling. It's a calling. Not everyone can do that type of work. It takes tremendous patience and, as you said, structure
yes.
at the top of the hour.
Yes.
So, Michele, we want to know how you've done amazing work, like really fulfilling, amazing, good, impactful work. How do you define success?
I thought a lot about that too, that question. And I think, some people define it as, how much money you make, or I don't know, your status or whatever. But I think of it more in terms of reaching a goal, accomplishing a goal, even if it's a small goal. So, and I think it's because my students over the years are very limited cognitively. And so for them, success could be, moving their arm for the first time. And that's a huge, big deal for them, and for me personally, success is some mornings just getting, my up and dressed and brushing my teeth, and that's success, man. You know what I mean? And other times, I feel successful if I get a whole bunch of stuff done throughout the day, so I think of it more in terms of small goals. I remember a sign up on our wall at the gym, and it says every visit is a victory. And so even if you just get to the gym, to me, that's successful. Of course, you should make the most of it when you're there, but success to me is just, those small goals that you can accomplish. But I guess if you're thinking of in terms of, work, since this is the great work of your life, doing something that brings you joy, and that not necessarily brings you joy every day, but, overall something that you don't mind doing and that you can live comfortably off of. I guess that's success too.
Yes, maybe the headline is "Small goals equal success."
Yes.
That's the takeaway.
Yes.
And in the context of the work that you've been doing, I think that makes a lot of sense, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear your answer to this question. given the story you shared at the top of the hour about your professor, if you had to do it all over again,
Uh,
what would that look like and why? Would you make any changes?
no, no, I wouldn't.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Mm-mm. No, because you're every. I really hate this expression that everything happens for a reason. I hate that thing. But I really think if you went back and changed, you wouldn't be where you are now, in my opinion. So, but I would have taken some time over the years to write. I'm not a big, I'm not a journal writer or anything like that, but I wish I had written down all of the stories and just crazy things and funny things and heartwarming things and scary things and all of the things that um like you said, freak out moments, but also really proud moments, and have kept sort of a journal over the years, because you forget a lot as the years go by, except for some of those really standout moments. But I wish I had kept more of a record so I could look back and, you know, but no, I wouldn't have
Yes.
done it anyway. I put in my what do you call it? My website. In hindsight, it was probably good advice that my art professor said that, because teaching is much more stable, and art, if I had done art all of those years, it's not as stable, and I've been able to save money, and I have a pension with the school system, and so that's allowing me now to do my art with less stress, and I can pursue it now knowing that I have a foundation of a safety net, financially. So
Definitely. Yes, for sure. Um, and I'm glad that you're pursuing this new path.
thank you.
Superpower is the next question. Where have you spent 10,000 hours honing your superpower? What is it?
Most definitely researching information. I think I've spent millions of hours just, whatever the topic, if it's art, if it's figuring out a new medium, or what kind of material, what kind of, pencils go best with what kind of paper, or if it's cooking, I didn't learn how to cook, let's say, when I was as younger. And so learning how to, I remember watching the Rachel Ray show on when she was on Food Network, taking notes, so whether it's, taking notes from, from a workshop or a lecture or something, or researching information on the internet, I would say that's definitely what I've spent lots of hours doing. And
That's your
then,
superpower.
and then trying to make it the best it could be, and make it the most efficient, and make it the most organized, and make it the most structured, and edit it and till it's just so.
So, yes, and I can see that your attention to detail in your art is palpable.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything you wish you were better at?
Math.
Yeah.
Hands down, because you don't realize it, but math's in everything, especially art. Not so much in special ed, because I mean, if you can count, you're pretty good there. But in art and music, and so many things, in budgeting for art, there's a lot of, I mean, not, but like, if you're going to do art as a business, I mean, and knowing just math, for sure.
Okay. Good
And
answer.
I am and cooking. I mentioned cooking. There's so much math, and I'm like, to ask my husband, okay, it asks for like a quarter of a cup. Which one is that? It's bad. I mean, not that bad, but
Got it. All right. See, wish you were better at math. This next question actually comes from Oprah Magazine. on the last page of Oprah's magazine, she always did a column, and it was called "What I Know to Be Absolutely True." So that's our question for you today: is what do you know about yourself that we need to know that is absolutely true?
Patience, probably. I have a lot of patience, and that I know to be true.
I wouldn't say any more than that, given the work that you have done for so many years. And if you think about your work in teaching um, people with disabilities, and then the very detailed work you do with colored
Yeah.
pencils. Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit more about the colored pencils? This was something else that I learned when I first met you. I don't know anything about art mediums, and you said that the colored pencils are very taxing. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit more about that? It requires not
Mhm.
only patience, but some physicality too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Colored pencils. In order to make to make an artwork look realistic, colored pencils are slightly translucent, so you have to build up a lot of layers. The great thing about colored pencil is that you can be very precise and you can make very realistic drawings. They're not so great for abstract artwork. If you enjoy that, then it's a lot easier to use some sort of paint. Colored pencil is very precise. So, and like I said, it's slightly transparent. So you have to build and build and build your layers of color on the paper. And also, most art paper isn't like poster board where it's really smooth. A lot of art paper has little dips and valleys in it. So, in order to make the colored paper look, I mean, in order to make the paper look not like in order to make the colored pencil not look like crayon where it has that like white speckly look, you have to build up those layers to fill in to fill in the peaks and the valleys of the paper and to build up that color. So just for an example, I'm teaching my first colored pencil class on Saturday.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic.
So people don't have all day to do a project, right? So I'll just show you the real quick, just the project that we're going to do on in my class, and it's a pear. Can you see it?
I can, yes. It has just it's almost like it's not quite ripe, where it's got a little bit of red in it.
Right, right. And so I had to limit myself to an hour um, to do this. So this one small pear. It took an hour just to build it up to that much.
I love the light. I mean, you can see the light there. And that's amazing to me.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
the shadow that the fruit makes. It
Yeah.
looks like I could eat it. It's real.
Thank you. But yeah, so just that alone took just that little bit took about an hour. And if I was to fuss over it more, I would probably have taken more time with it. But um this one, this is probably my favorite one. And this took many, many hours.
Oh, that one's on your website. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah.
I need to talk to you about that one for my brother. It's the glove and the baseball and the
Yeah.
bat. My
Thank
brother
you.
is he owns a company called the Hitting Club, and he
Oh,
teaches young folks between the ages of 6 and 16 the fundamentals of baseball. He's an
that's
umpire. Baseball is the air he breathes. He said that he loves it more than his wife and children.
wow.
Yes, so I would love to
Oh,
talk with you offline about maybe
oh,
commissioning something for him to put in his in the hitting club in his where I mean where folks go to learn how to hit, learn how to pitch, learn the
oh.
fundamentals, learn how to, and most importantly, how to be a good sport.
That's very important.
Yeah,
Oh, that would be wonderful.
yeah.
Well, thank you. So yeah, so that's why it's so taxing, and gripping that pencil. So I did develop some tendonitis and some things. So I switched over to pastels, And I can show you one of those real quick.
Yes, I'd love to see it.
This is
It's a portrait. It's a portrait. Lovely.
This is a Pearl Harbor survivor.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And so, but the difference with pastels is that you can build up the layers much quicker because it's softer in,
yes.
So it takes much less pressure and much less going over and over and over it to get a similar result.
Yes, understood. Thank you for that lesson, teacher. Thank you.
Welcome.
We all learned something today. Fascinating. And I'm going to throw your website in again, MicheleYoungArt.com, Michele with one L. We have 3 more questions and then the bonus question.
Okay.
This one's, I can't wait to hear the answer to this one. What would people be surprised to know about you, Michele?
I worked at Disney in the character department, and I was Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Daisy Duck and and Pinocchio. And I worked there back when Disney was only 15 years old. Now they just celebrated their 50th anniversary, I think. So yeah, I was one of the first characters, not the first, but before they changed over the costumes and redesigned them and all, before they had all the multitude of Disney characters that they do now. So yeah.
You gave me a million guesses. I would have never guessed that about you. That's a good one.
Yeah. And because of my height, that's the only reason. I'm 4'9". So, and now they've raised I'm pretty sure they raised the height requirement for Mickey because when they redesigned the costumes, they made him a little taller.
Oh, no kidding. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right. So we have 2 more questions and a bonus. These last 2 questions, we are looking for your advice. And the first one is, what is a book that inspired you to behave or think differently?
Well, I don't want this to sound like hokey because it really isn't, but there's this program called Dressing Your Truth, and it's by Carol Tuttle. And she has developed this dressing program. She researched, like how women would know this, men probably not, but back in the 80s and 90s, you could be a fall or a winter, and you put your colors and see what looks good on you and you dress accordingly.
Yes. And what are you?
Are
you a summer?
No, I don't think so. I don't know what I am in that system, but
interesting.
Yeah, but Carol Tuttle developed. She took that, and she took kind of personality type things like the Myers-Briggs, AJ, whatever, what I'm talking about there. And so she pulled from all these different similar programs, and she kind of pulled this and that from here and there and made one of her own. And she wrote a book, and it's called It's Just My Nature. And it's by Carol Tuttle. And then she developed her Dressing the Truth system based on that. And so basically it's a dressing, but according to how you move through life, like your energy through life, and again, I don't want it to sound hokey, like it's like this energy, like whatever, but more like if you go through life more focused, or if you kind of meander your way through life, or if you kind of bounce through life, just bounce from here, or if you're kind of more steady, and then what colors look best on you based on your facial profile and how your energy is. And that has really made a difference for me in energy, actually, really. You feel better about when you feel better about yourself, you have more energy, and if you feel like you look nice, and it just all kind of is a snowball effect. So yeah, that's
I'm not familiar with the book, and I'm surprised, and I'm just put it on my list. because I am familiar with the system. It's winter, spring, summer, fall, and you go through a color palette and you discern which colors are best, like you said, for
Mhm.
your
Your complexion.
skin tone
Yeah, yeah.
and your energy level. And I'm a
Yeah.
winter. I know that for sure.
Okay.
And
But this
I
is a little different because it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily go by your skin. I never thought I could wear yellow because of that. It
right.
didn't match the fall, winter, whatever one, but it does she breaks it into four. You're a 1, 2, or 3, or a 4. So it does, Matt. And I feel good in yellow, so
Yes, I'm
it's
with you. And I had back in my 20s, I was in my late 20s, I hired an executive coach and she gave me some tough love, really tough love.
oh,
She basically said I needed to pay more attention to my image in terms of the way I dress, the way I enter a room, the way I show up. Um, and 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 she was right. It hurt a little bit because I really wasn't, I mean, I wasn't paying attention to my self-image at all because it was never my thing. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. So, I mean, we didn't have access to Vogue magazine. So
right.
it never really entered my mind. And that was a game changer for me. It was hard to hear,
Mhm.
um, but I did take the advice and it to this day, to this day, I still think about, what is my presence like when I walk through a doorway,
Yeah, yeah.
or what am I wearing in terms of style, or am I
Right.
holding my chin up high enough?
Right.
How's my
Yeah.
posture?
Right.
I mean, it sounds very fundamental, but I wasn't paying attention to any of that, and it showed.
Hmm. Well, you
Yeah.
look
So thank you
lovely.
for that
You're
suggestion.
welcome.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Quote. What's your favorite quote? Your motto and why?
Well, I don't necessarily have, an all-time favorite, but one thing I like to share that I just heard recently, someone say, "Don't wait for the light to change." And I thought that was appropriate for this interview and for what we're talking about because um, in teaching, particularly, if you're a teacher out there, you kind of could relate that you save your fun things to do for the summer when you have most teachers have summers off. Some people have to work financially, they can't take the summers off, but if they can, oh, I'll do that in the summer, I'll do that project in the summer, I'll do that fun thing in the summer, and then all throughout the rest of the year you're just concentrating on teaching, and too tired when you get home to do anything else. So I mentioned earlier, back in 2016, when I was so stressed out in that kind of administrative role, and I said, this isn't healthy and I need to balance it out. Don't wait for summer. Don't wait, do it now, and so I did, and I'm glad I did because I laid the groundwork, and now I have my website, and I've established connections and starting a class. And so even though I'm not retiring until June from the school system, I didn't wait for the light to change so I can, I got a head start on things. So I'd say
Thank you
that.
for that.
Yeah.
That's the headline. I knew the headline would appear. So the headline to introduce this interview is going to be "Don't wait for the light to change." I think it's brilliant. Thank you. Is
You're
there anything else
welcome.
you would like to add before we go into the bonus question?
Well, the answer, oh, two things. Back to dressing your truth. And it's just your nature. When you're in special ed, and I worked at a center, which is just a school that only had special ed, you get all the bodily fluids, and and we're not nurses, so we don't wear scrubs, so we would just wear basically jeans and t-shirts to school every day. But when I learned about this other program that I told you about, you can still even if you're wearing a t-shirt, you can wear it if it's a nice, and you put together your jewelry and your hair, and you don't have to be a slob in. You can still, you know what I mean? You can still present yourself nicely, even if it is a t-shirt and jeans, or even if you're in an environment like that, you can dress up too if you want to a little bit. So I did want to add that. And the other quick thing I wanted to add was the question about when did I realize what the great work of my life? I don't remember if you asked me that, but I just wanted to mention that, a lot of girls when they're little, they always dream about being a mom. And so they have their baby dolls and, they feed the baby dolls and all that. Never mattered to me. I had my stuffed animals and I would line them up on the floor, and my mom was a teacher. So she gave me one of her old grade books, and I had all the names of my stuffed animals listed in the grade book, and I would give all my stuffed animals grades. So yeah, I think that was when I knew I wanted to be a teacher.
That's a clue. That's a clue to the great work of your life that your mom can attest to.
Yeah. And then the art part of it, I mentioned that I had a lot of family members who were artists, and I can remember we lived with my grandparents and my uncles and my aunts for a while, and my uncles were artists, and in their room, it was the smell of art supplies. I don't know if you can relate, if you're not, if you all out there aren't familiar with art supplies, but even if you know what a box of crayons smells like, it has this particular scent. Art supplies do too, colored pencils, especially because of the wood casing. So when you sharpen it, it's always, you're sharpening that wood. And so it kind of has like a wood smell. Anyway, between that and the comfort that gave me and my stuffed animals and my grade book, that's kind of when I knew those were both of my great works of my life.
The great works. Yes, it's the great work of your life has been this really interesting combination. And currently you're doing portraits. You've commissioned portraits, you've commissioned pet portraits. And my understanding is you won the Opus Award at an art exhibition in Tampa, Florida. Yes,
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So it's the great work of your life has been recognized, Michele. I think it's fantastic that you've combined such meaningful work. So that leads us to our last question. It's our bonus legacy question. So if a higher power would let you do, be, have, see anything, what would that be?
To fly. I said my greatest thing is patience, but maybe it isn't, because when it comes to driving, it's such a waste of time, and it's stressful, and it's random and chaotic, and it's noisy, and it's not structured, and I would just rather get on a magic carpet and just fly right over everybody.
I'm with you there. If I could sell my car tomorrow, I would. There's got to be a better way. I'm waiting for this is the self-flying planes. I can't wait.
Yeah, or just like in the cartoon with, what's his name, when they would just the
Jetsons.
The Jetsons, yes.
The Jetsons, yes.
The Jetsons, and they would just kind of.
Yes. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
That's what I would
Michele,
say.
This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Michele Young, you can see her artwork on MicheleYoungArt.com, Michele with one L. It's been great to hear about this journey. And I know that you have inspired many that are listening to this particular interview. So thank you, Michele.
Thank you so much, Mary. I enjoyed it.